Know your place, my mother-in-law snapped in an icy tone. Of course our son doesn't need your approval to keep us here, she added sharply. You can't speak to our son in that manner. Be cautious, or you might find yourself being asked to leave. Stop acting like a spoiled individual and escort us to the most spacious room. We're not going to wait any longer, Janice demanded, her voice rising. I straightened my posture, anger simmering beneath the surface, but I kept my voice steady as I locked eyes with her. No, Janice, I don't believe I'll comply with that, I replied firmly. The room froze in stunned silence, the weight of my defiance hanging in the air like a thundercloud about to break. I'm Macy. I'm 36 years old, and I find myself in a new chapter of life as a single woman. In the past, I was married to someone named Tyler, who, unfortunately, turned out to be quite a challenging partner. His parents, David and Janice, were no better, and together they consistently made me feel quite uncomfortable. To be honest, Tyler and I were both successful in our careers and were financially stable. However, despite our achievements, his parents never acknowledged my contributions, and instead labeled me as someone who was taking advantage of their son. Tyler played a role in this by constantly portraying me as fortunate to have married him, insinuating that I desired a luxurious life that only he could provide. Unbeknownst to his parents, I managed most of the finances in our household. Despite my efforts, Tyler perpetuated the misconception that I was financially dependent on him, adding strain to our relationship. His parents even went so far as to have us sign a prenuptial agreement, believing I wouldn't amount to anything and wanting to protect their son's interests. While I don't object to the concept of prenups, what bothered me was that Tyler never discussed it with me. He consistently misled his family about our financial situation, falsely claiming that I earned significantly less than him and relied on him entirely. In my love for Tyler, I tolerated insults and humiliation from both him and his family. It pains me to admit that I made a mistake in marrying him. Tyler didn't truly care for me or respect me. Instead, he regularly belittled me for earning less and spending what he falsely claimed was his money. In reality, he had lost his job 2 years ago and was dependent on me, a fact he desperately wanted to keep hidden from his parents. As time passed, Tyler's behavior wore on my patience. He refused to actively seek employment, continuously draining my savings. The breaking point came when I independently purchased a house, marking the end of our troubled relationship. I received an inheritance from a relative and started saving to build a fund for buying a house. When I found the perfect match, a beautiful house that I instantly fell in love with, I purchased it and put the title in my name only. Despite Tyler not contributing financially to the purchase, he continued to protest. I reminded him that he hadn't paid anything towards it, but his persistent pestering became unbearable. The breaking point came during a family dinner when Tyler's parents brought up the topic of the house. They expressed excitement about us buying a big, unique house and asked if we had moved in yet. Despite Tyler and I having already finalized the deal and moved in, Tyler's mother assumed he had contributed significantly due to his modest salary. When Tyler's mom questioned if we had bought the house jointly, I anticipated Tyler would correct her and acknowledge my full ownership. However, he shocked me by claiming he had paid for the entire house, citing his successful job and substantial savings as the reasons for buying it in his name. His parents showered him with praise, declaring him a successful and independent homeowner. Despite my attempts to get Tyler's attention and rectify the situation, he avoided eye contact deliberately. Frustrated and angered by the situation, I managed to control my emotions, choosing not to confront him in front of his parents. Upon our departure, I couldn't help but question Tyler about his revelation to his parents regarding the house purchase. What on earth was that, Tyler? Why did you claim to have bought the house entirely on your own when you hadn't paid a penny on it? I said indignantly. Tyler tried to ease my concerns, saying, "Relax, Macy. I just wanted to make them happy. I didn't want them to suspect that I lost my job. They would be extremely disappointed. What else was I supposed to do?" Frustrated, I responded, "You could have at least mentioned that we went 60 to 65 on the house. Instead, you took all the credit for the purchase. This feels humiliating and unfair, Tyler." I continued to protest indignantly. He dismissively stated, "Look, what's done is done. I'm not going back to correct myself. I won't humiliate myself like that. Who cares what my parents think? Let them believe what they want." Reflecting on the situation, I realized that something had changed in Tyler after our marriage. He seemed to no longer care about me or my feelings, and it became apparent that he had been relying on me for the past 2 years. Despite showing signs of finding employment again, he even argued about putting his name on the house title. As I grappled with the realization that he was using me, a more significant issue unfolded. One evening, as I prepared a snack, the doorbell rang, prompting Tyler to hurriedly open the door with a hint of uneasiness. To my shock, I discovered his parents at the door, bringing all their belongings. Beaming with excitement, they announced their plans to stay in the new house, claiming Tyler had invited them to live in the home he had bought outright. Feeling blindsided, I listened as Tyler played along, claiming it was his idea to have them move in, stating that they needed to stay in the spacious house since he had purchased it. At that moment, it became clear that Tyler's deceitfulness extended beyond his parents, and I began contemplating what steps to take next. My disbelief was palpable as I processed the information. In no conceivable reality did I ever consent to Tyler's decision to let his parents stay in our house. It was evident that the facade surrounding the house had spiraled out of control. However, I hesitated to confront Tyler in the presence of his family. There was no way I would permit his parents to live in my house, but I sought a tactful approach to handle the situation. Meanwhile, Tyler's parents continued to indulge in wishful thinking, expressing their delight at living in a spacious house. They showered praise on Tyler for his supposed success, proclaiming our home to be magnificent. Their excitement grew as they discussed the prospect of having 3 bedrooms with plans to claim the largest one. Frustrated and increasingly angry at the unexpected intrusion and presumptuous demands, I decided it was time to address the issue privately. I suggested to Tyler that we have a conversation away from his parents, who seemed oblivious to the brewing tension. Turning to him with barely contained frustration, I said sharply, "Tyler, we need to talk, privately, now." Tyler, sensing the severity of the situation, began avoiding eye contact, realizing he was in trouble. Annoyed by my in-laws' sudden arrival and their audacious requests, I confronted Tyler about his unilateral decision. "Why didn't you tell me they were coming?" I demanded. "You can't just make decisions like this without consulting me." Tyler, perhaps fearing the impending confrontation, attempted to deflect. "Maybe we should discuss this openly in front of my parents," he said, his voice laden with false confidence. I crossed my arms, refusing to back down. "Are you sure about that, Tyler?" "Well, if you don't mind discussing it in front of your parents, then neither do I." Without waiting for his response, I turned to my mother-in-law. "Go ahead and tell me what you want." Janice's eyes narrowed as her tone turned cutting. "Certainly, he doesn't require your approval to retain us here," she snapped. "Know your place, Macy. You can't address our son in that manner. Exercise caution, or you might find yourself asked to leave. Stop acting like a spoiled brat, and show us to the most spacious room. We've waited long enough." I straightened my posture, meeting her gaze squarely. My voice was calm but resolute. "No, Janice, I don't believe I'll comply with that." My audacity left Janice and David utterly astonished. I wasn't certain whether I should resent them or not. Granted, they were entitled individuals, but it was Tyler's fault for deceiving his parents. If Tyler hadn't misled them and invited them, we wouldn't be facing this issue. Nonetheless, I acknowledged that Janice and David were not entirely blameless. They stood in my home threatening eviction. It was challenging for me to overlook that. My mother-in-law glared at me. "What do you mean, Macy? If you don't guide us to the room our son Tyler assured us of, we'll have to take matters into our own hands. We left our rented apartment for this reason. We came here today because Tyler vowed to care for us. He's a good man who knows how to look after his parents. He invited us to stay in his new home, prompting us to terminate our lease prematurely," she explained. "In that case, Janice and David, you've made a grave error," I said coolly. "I doubt you can stay here, let alone claim the largest room." Janice's eyes narrowed. "How dare you, Macy? We don't require your permission to stay here. Our son will lead us to our room. If you won't, remember this house isn't yours to decide if we stay, she added angrily. You've misunderstood, Janice, I replied. I suppose Tyler hasn't informed you yet. This house belongs to me, not him. Therefore, the largest room is not at your disposal. You'll have to make do elsewhere. David interrupted, his voice rising. What? That's impossible. Our son has assured us he bought the house. You're lying. I raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Well, why don't you confirm with Tyler? I'm certain he'll clarify everything. We will, Macy, Janice replied, then turned to her son with indignation. Tyler, tell your wife she's spreading falsehoods. Confirm that you're the owner of the house, just as you've claimed before. Seeing my husband's hesitation, my father-in-law added, Speak up, Tyler. Tell her she can't evict us. My husband remained silent, avoiding eye contact and keeping his gaze on the floor. Gradually, it dawned on his parents that there might be truth in what I was saying. Although they couldn't fully believe it, all this time they had perceived me as a gold digger with a mediocre job, contrasting their son as a hard-working and successful man. Why aren't you saying anything? You told us this house belongs to you. Speak up, Tyler. Tell her she can't evict us, Janice urged, echoing her husband's words. My patience had worn thin, and I decided to step in. What will he say, guys? He's been deceiving you all this time. I can even provide the property papers proving I am the sole owner of this house, I concluded. That can't be true. You have a simple job and limited finances. Our son has a substantial income. There's no way this house is yours. My mother-in-law scoffed. I turned to her, my voice sharp. A significant income, you say? Funny how he forgot to mention that he lost his job 2 years ago. Since then, he's been living off my earnings. And for the record, I have an excellent job. Just because I don't brag about it doesn't mean I'm financially weak, I shot back. The shock on my in-laws' faces was palpable when I unveiled the truth. Tyler, as usual, avoided eye contact, refusing to meet his parents' gaze. They persistently asked him to confirm my statement. He remained silent until I said, Enough drama for 2 days. David and Janice, I've hosted you in my house long enough. It's time for you both to gather your belongings and leave. Macy, you can't just evict my parents like that. They terminated their lease to be with us, and they have nowhere else to go. You can't put them on the streets, my husband protested. Tyler, I said firmly, I can and will proceed with these decisions. No consultation occurred before these choices were made, and your consideration was absent when ensuring them a place in my house. My husband wasn't going to back down. While this may be your residence, I am also your husband. If I decide that my parents will stay here, they will stay. You cannot evict them, he continued. My in-laws also tried to object. This house belongs to our son as well, and anything that is yours is also his. You cannot force us out. Janice, I said, my tone icy, I can indeed remove you, and your son will be no exception. Since you're still legally married to me, Tyler, I will draft an eviction notice for you. Don't worry, you won't remain married for long. Tyler's face turned pale. What do you mean, Macy? Are you planning to divorce me? Yes, my dear husband, I am, I responded with finality. I'll contact my lawyer tomorrow to schedule an appointment. We should be able to serve you with the divorce papers after 10 days. Tyler panicked at the mention of divorce, displaying anger. He threatened to take half the house and claim alimony. However, I reminded him of the prenuptial agreement he and his parents had made me sign, stating that under no circumstances could we claim alimony from each other. Our private assets would remain ours and not be divided in case of divorce. Tyler, upon recalling the prenup, was taken aback. In that moment, he and his parents fully grasped its implications. They suggested we refrain from an immediate divorce and instead have an adult conversation to discuss the situation. Macy, let's take a moment to calm down and talk this through. I'm sure we can find a solution that works for everyone, my husband suggested. I don't care about your benefits, Tyler, I replied firmly. I won't be a cash cow for you, and I won't let your parents take advantage of me after how badly they treated me. That was in the past, Macy. Many years have passed. I'm sure you can look past it. It was a minor issue, my father-in-law tried to justify himself. You and your wife, I snapped. Were threatened to have me kicked out just a few minutes ago because I refused to house you. No use making excuses now. You and Janice need to leave before I call the cops. I'd prefer if Tyler leaves too, but he'll get an eviction notice if needed, I concluded. Tyler, David, and Janice begged me to change my mind. They had ended their lease, assuming they could move in with us. My husband thought he could convince me to play along as I did in the past. Little did he know I would stand up against him and stop being a pushover. I was done being the family doormat. They could go to hell for all I cared. When my in-laws didn't leave, even after an hour, I called the cops. They escorted them out and Tyler screamed at me for humiliating his parents. How could you humiliate my parents like that? You humiliated yourself, I retorted. And don't forget, you have a month to vacate my house. That made him switch to being apologetic and remorseful. From that night, I didn't allow Tyler into my room. He stayed in the guest room until he had to leave, served with an eviction notice. Meanwhile, his parents, after spending a significant portion of their savings on a hotel, had to find a new place to rent. Surprisingly, they didn't allow Tyler into their new place, leaving him scrambling for a place, just like his parents. It seemed they wanted Tyler to pay for lying to them. Since then, their relationship has become strained, blaming each other for their present condition. His parents refused to support Tyler anymore. He was only valuable when he had money. Tyler had to couch surf at his friends until he got a job. I filed for divorce. There was no way I was staying with him. He disrespected me and revealed himself as a vain and selfish man, not the person I fell in love with. Tyler tried to change my mind, but I was firm. I refused to be taken advantage of. Since we didn't have kids, we got divorced after 3 months of separation. In those 3 months, I rebuilt myself and started dating again. Tyler still hopes we can get back together, but that will only happen in his dreams.